So you're trying to get your company to embrace DEI, build strategies around it, and execute, right? Why does it feel like an uphill battle? Too often, I see employees who are part of diversity councils, employee resource groups, or even DEI practitioners themselves that struggle with getting their organizations to embrace DEI. It's because we're taking the wrong approach. Stop using the argument that DEI is the right thing to do. Okay, so people should want to make the workplace more diverse and fair for every employee. But the truth is that some people don't care because it doesn't impact them. Okay, maybe that's too harsh of a statement. What's more fair to say is that it's not a priority for some people. Let's just really think about this for a second. Not everyone is compelled by the same things. I remember a few years ago, I was engrossed in reading memoirs, particularly those written by international writers who survived the most horrific experiences, like being a former child soldier. The part that got to me was how I responded after I read each book. I was always moved to tears by the protagonist's story, so much so that I did nothing, absolutely nothing. Although each story was incredibly moving, I couldn't relate. Their experience seemed so foreign to me, and because I couldn't relate to them and these stories, they were just that, stories on a page that I read. The same concept applies for the audiences at work who were trying to persuade to take more of a stance around DEI. There's so many groups of people and initiatives that need our attention. For instance, there's the drive to end homelessness, people coping with cystic fibrosis, breast cancer awareness, child trafficking, migrant children in cages, the list goes on. The right thing to do would be for each of us to involve ourselves with each and every one of these initiatives, right? But that's unrealistic. So how then do we make decisions about which causes we're going to sponsor? It's based on our ability to identify with that cause. Either we have a direct affiliation with that cause or we know someone who's close to us who belongs to that group. Well, the same rationale can be applied to DEI in the workplace. Most of the decision makers in companies who can influence the breadth and scope of DEI work in an organization are typically not part of an underrepresented group. Maybe a handful of them have a personal connection to DEI, but most don't. No matter how compelling your story is, as long as they cannot identify with it, then it's futile. Positioning DEI as the right thing for them to do results in DEI just being bucketed with all of the other initiatives that are morally correct. That means that they don't get priority. It's time for us to make DEI a business imperative by acknowledging and showing how DEI impacts revenue. If we're in B2C work, then it's much easier to estimate how DEI can grow market share. However, if we're in B2B work, then it's about communicating how DEI can enhance the quality of business partnerships, which could lead to increased referrals and retention. Right now, some business leaders are too afraid of sounding crass by focusing on DEI's impact to the business and dollars because they don't want to offend some of us. Once we give them permission to draw a parallel between DEI and money, then they're more likely to embrace DEI. While this might not be the altruistic approach that we're looking for to build DEI in our workplace, it will drive the results that we seek to achieve.